Tellez might not be the most popular man in town, but he sure had one thing right earlier this season. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Pirates 5, Cubs 4 last night at Wrigley Field. Home runs from Edward Olivares and Nick Gonzalez. Another quality start from Jared Jones. 3 runs over 6 innings, had to fight through some stuff, worked out of it with his slider. Got 7 Ks, did the job, and then the closer did that job, which hadn't exactly been the norm in the early going. David Bednar went 1-2-3 through the Cubs, just like he went 1-2-3 through the Brewers the other night. In his last 6 appearances, and by that I'm referencing all 6 in the month of May, he's got 4 saves. He's given up 1 run. There's still been a couple of times where he's given up some hits and maybe made you cringe a little bit. But when you look at the last 2 saves, both of those on this road trip, you're talking about someone who's really in command, or I should say increasingly in command. I'll give you a little bit of detail on these two. The save in Milwaukee, and I was up there for that. You could tell he was still trying to spot his off-speed stuff as opposed to just letting it fly. And he ended up with 17 pitches thrown, 10 strikes. Now I'm going to say it again. He did go 1-2-3 through the Brewers hitters. In this one, though, 8 pitches, 7 strikes. That's Bednar. That's the all-star version of Bednar, meaning he goes out there, he throws a couple of pitches, he gets some contact. If he really needs a strikeout, he'll start firing away upstairs. You'll see him ratchet it up to 97, but he'll use all of his stuff and he'll go at the zone with it. He won't try to get you to fish. He'll try to get you to make contact or miss, meaning right through it. And that's as much a positive as anything that's occurred with this team, I think, over the past week or so. And as Tellez probably, against all common sense, admonished fans earlier this season, Bednar is an all-star, and Bednar is one of the better closers in the game, in addition to being the local lad and all that other stuff. So, the question would appear to remain, what actually happened, presuming it's in the past tense, to Bednar? Well, on this trip, I asked a few questions about that of people who would know. And I got some answers on this, and I'm going to share them with you. Although I don't suspect that they'll surprise any of you who follow the team closely. When Bednar came out of spring training, and he was on the shelf, well, for one day, I'll get into that. He had a lat issue that held him out of the final 2-3 weeks of grapefruit ball. So he hadn't pitched in a while. The Pirates made a decision that since Bednar didn't have to come off the IL until the day after the season opener in Miami, they would just take him along. They wouldn't bother stringing out his stint, and they would then have him active for the remainder of the Marlins series and, of course, moving forth, beginning with the second game. This is not hindsight on my part. I wrote at the time from Miami that this was not smart. I also heard from people inside the operation that this was not smart. None of us, of course, wanted to be right, but ended up being right, because Bednar couldn't throw the ball over the plate, particularly with the off-speed stuff, and he's always been able to do both of those things, like since he rolled out of the womb. What should have been done, according to a source of mine in Milwaukee on this past trip, was that the Pirates should have left him behind on the other side of Florida and allowed him to work through some extended spring training and make sure that he was all the way back. This was an upper body injury. This was something that would affect the arm and the performance almost without a doubt. Whether or not this occurred to anybody, all the way up to and including Ben Cherington, who would make that call, I don't know. Whether or not this was the recommendation that was made to Cherington by the medical staff, I don't know. Whether or not this whole situation was eminently avoidable, we all know now. But hey, look, it's, 6 weeks into the season, Bednar is starting to look like himself. That's what matters the most here. And that, coupled with a resurgence from Aroldis Chapman, who looked fine last night, Colin Holderman, who looked fine last night, for the most part, that can finally have everybody back to talking about that bullpen that was supposed to be so great coming out of spring training. Now we know why it didn't. When we come back, J1Q. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern, that's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Today's J1Q comes from Michael, who asks, do you think DK Bob Nutting is aware of how terrible all of the top prospects are hitting throughout the organization, as you've pointed out, or is he being snowed by our general manager? Most of Nutting's inside the team interactions, from what I understand, and by the way, from what I see with my own eyes, happen directly with Travis Williams. He prefers, Nutting does, to delegate. And as you've heard me say on this show, one of his greatest failings I've felt as an owner is that he'll excessively delegate. He really, really doesn't like people to feel as if there's someone over them, sniffing everything that they do. He doesn't believe in that type of organizational leadership. We're all entitled to disagree with that. I happen to disagree with it when it comes to sports. So, to answer your question, it's infinitely more likely that any conversation that happens, including related to baseball, is going to be something that is between the two of them. Not that he doesn't communicate directly with Ben Cherington, not that they don't have some kind of relationship of their own or whatever, but you're just not going to see in this environment, again, based on everything that I know and have experienced over the years, where it's Nutting going directly to someone in baseball ops. He is really, really proper about that sort of thing and would rather just handle it at the CEO level. Now, what does that mean as far as the minor league hitting performances that I've been referencing on this show? And for anybody who missed it, the very quick summation is of the top 30 prospects that the Pirates have, according to MLB Pipeline, 18 of them are hitters. If you average out the performances, the current performances of those 18 hitters, they are batting 176. Not a misprint, as they say. Should that be the type of thing that's getting discussed by the people who are running the entire organization as opposed to baseball ops? Yes, of course. Is it? I can't even hazard a guess at that. I will share this without being able to speak to that very specific piece of information that you're referencing. I do know that there is attention being paid to the minor leagues and to things that aren't going all that well in the minor leagues. I don't have anything remotely resembling details on that Or I'd share them with you. It's what reporters do. We're not in the business of keeping secrets. That just happens to be all that I know. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates today, all week long, and always. And we'll be back with a new episode Monday. Oh, and happy Paul Skeens Day to all who observe.